Hi everybody, time for another video. I wanted to build on something we talked about last time, which was how in a lot of cases we have the queen deliver checkmate. Queen, your most powerful piece, often moves herself right up to your enemy's king, but needs a helper in order to do that. If you just put your queen next to the other king, unprotected, well, the king's just going to grab her. But if you have a helper, protector, then you can bring her right up and deliver a checkmate. Now, I want to show you, and a lot of you are already going to know this, but I'm going to show you anyway, something that's kind of a trick play. It's referred to as scholar's mate, technically, but you guys may know it as the four-move checkmate. It's a trick play. Now, I'm going to show it to you because it helps illustrate this whole queen and helper checkmate theme. I'm going to show it to you, I'm going to show you how it's done, and then I'm going to show you why you should never do it. You guys need to be prepared for the situations where one of your opponents tries to pull this thing on you. But the trick is, it's not actually very strong. If you try to use the four-move checkmate, if you try to use scholar's mate, and your opponent knows what to do, you're going to wind up in a worse position. So if somebody comes at you with this thing, you'll know how to beat it back and get in a much better position. So let's get started. These are the basic factors of this checkmate. Now I want to show you, first of all, take a look at the board, how it stands. Now a lot of people would look at this and say it's perfect. Everything is kind of where it's supposed to be. The pawns are in a nice neat line, all the pieces are safe behind that wall of pawns. And so people have said the situation is perfect, and moves only serve to spoil the symmetry. But I actually think that there's flaws in this setup, in the opening setup. And the flaw, as one on each side, are these squares, F2 and F7. And the reason why these are flaws in the structure is if you look at all of the pawns there, these are the only pawns that are guarded solely by their kings. All the other pawns are guarded. For example, this guy over here on H7 is guarded by the rook. Over here, this bishop guards these two pawns, like so. But the pawns on F7, F2 are only guarded by their kings. And because of this, these pieces are often used as targets for an early quick attack that involves both a queen and a bishop. So let's take a look at how that materializes. The opening moves of the four-move checkmate are like this. Move out the king pawn 2 squares to E4. Very common. And a common response to this, and I would recommend this, is E5, keeping the symmetry. And remember, we talked about one of the reasons that this is awesome is it allows your bishop and your queen to come out. It gives them a lot. You guys a lot of area to explore. So it's good, it's very functional, and so white will use this situation to do something like this. Now, this move, queen to h5, is very provocative because it brings the queen very close to the black pieces, and it immediately threatens the square f7. So it's pretty nasty looking. But let me tell you what this is called. This is actually a move that's called the parem attack. But what it's more commonly known as is the Patzer opening, or the Patzer opening. And this is a word that you will see from time to time. Patzer. It's derived from the German. It's a common chess term. It means a player who is a bungler, a bad player, a beginner, somebody who doesn't know what they're doing. Patzer. And so this is called, appropriately, the Patzer opening. But anyway, somebody will try this on you. And you should recognize at first that the queen on h5 is doing two things. First of all, it's attacking f7, which is the weak square, but it is also attacking this pawn on e5, which is loose and unguarded. So what do we do about that? Well, let's say you don't know what's going on. You're not ready to to have your pawn taken. You're scared about that, and so you do something like knight to c6. This is a reasonable move, because it guards the pawn on e5. So you think, all right, I'm doing well. And then we come up with something like bishop to c4. Now you can see where the real danger is. White's looking at f7 with the queen, and the helper over there on c4 is getting ready to help the queen zoom in for the checkmate. This is what your opponent is hoping that you do not see. So, instead, maybe you make a move like this. Knight to f6. You say, that queen is too close, I want to chase that queen away. Whatever reason. You make a move like this that doesn't help protect f7, what you're going to see is checkmate. Queen just swoops right in. That helper is on b4, c4, excuse me, and the king is trapped in the middle of all his own pieces. It's a problem. So this is the situation that you want to avoid. You want to stay away from this sort of position. So let's back it up for a few minutes, a few moves, and let's see what we can do here. Now again, the queen here is doing her work. You're protecting this pawn on e5, and this is a good move. You don't want to lose that pawn. And then this is the dangerous move, for the reasons we talked about. I'll get rid of these arrows here. What can you do? There's an easy move here. And we were talking about this in class last time, and it's something like this. G6. This is a very simple move. It blocks the queen's access. The queen can no longer get to f7. And not only that, she's being attacked. She can't come over here and grab this pawn because it's defended by this guy. So what's there to do? What's there to do? Well, she runs away. She goes to a place like f3 and thinks, okay, I can do this now because I'm back in my situation. I'm back focusing on f7. My threat is there again. And this is another pattern. This is another way you can run the four-move checkmate. Well, all black has to do is block the queen's access to that square. And a simple move is something like knight to f6. Just block that square. Because now if the queen captures here, we can just grab her back. No big deal. That knight is in a good square. It's guarded. And so it keeps the attack from going on. And now white really has nothing to do here, because all of white's roads to that f7 square are blocked. So maybe he makes a move like this, knight to e2, just hoping. We have this great square here for black on g7, a nest for the bishop. Let's put that there. White brings out his other pawn, or his other knight. Maybe we protect our pawn on e5, and white protects his pawn on e4. And in a situation like this, black is actually better. This is about the best that white can hope for in this situation, and black is still better. Black has his knights on excellent squares. This bishop is going to have a nice future, looking all the way down the board. In contrast, if we look at white's pieces, white's queen here is on a bad square, and this knight would like to have gone to f3, but the queen was guarding that square. This bishop here is probably going to still be dangerous in the game. This knight is in a pretty good space, but black's position is solid. Now, an interesting thing about this position is that this is a game that was actually played by one of the strongest players in the world. The white player is a guy by the name of Hikaru Nakamura. He's one of America's strongest chess players and one of the strongest chess players in the world now. Played this several years ago. He kind of toyed with it. He was one of these guys who was very interested in kind of messing with his opponent's head and trying things that everyone else thought were weird. But in this particular game, which was played in Malmo, Sweden in 2005, his opponent, who's not as strong a chess player, very carefully and methodically ground him down. And Hikaru Nakamura lost the game that he tried the four-move checkmate on. So if the strongest players in the world can't make this work, then neither will your opponents be able to. Just, let's go back here, and if we see this position where the queen and the bishop are both attacking that square, just block them. Just block them with something like g6. It's not hard. And then they won't have anything to do. Their attack will sputter out and be unsuccessful, and you've developed pieces at the same time. Now I want to show you something which is a little bit sneakier. Let's go back to the beginning of the game. White moves a pawn, black moves a pawn, and then sometimes you'll see this. Now you can see this bishop is actually in a good place. It's looking at that f7 square, which is weak. But this is not called the Potzer opening or the Parham attack. This is actually called the bishop's opening. It is one of the oldest opening moves in chess. It's very well respected, and there's nothing wrong with it. You will sometimes see this for white, and you shouldn't always think that white's going to go for the 4-move checkmate here. But sometimes he does, if you give him an opportunity to. The best move in a position like this is this. Now, this knight here on f6 is going to guard these key squares. So the white queen won't be able to come out there. Otherwise, he'll just be grabbed. He's also attacking this pawn. This is a good move. This will stop the 4-move checkmate in its tracks. Even if white wants to play it, he's not going to be able to do it here. The best he might be able to do is to do something like move the queen to f3 and hope that later on you're going to move this guy away. But since you know what to do, it's unlikely that you're going to have to be able to do that. But let's say you kind of want to parallel white for whatever reason. Then you're opening up yourself to all kinds of difficulty. Because now white can move out to h5. And again, white is attacking both the pawn for an immediate checkmate and this pawn on e5, which again you don't want to lose. And in a situation like this, your best move is actually to try to guard both things. And there's a move that can do that. And that's queen to e7. Always look for moves that do two things at once. You'll save yourself time and you'll give your opponent more difficulty. You find those kind of dual purpose moves, then you're usually on the right track. So this is a nice move because it guards f7 and it attacks, or it guards e5 at the same time. These are two things that you want to do. But again, I think that let's just work on never getting to this point. Black should try harder, if white's going to be sneaky in his own way, with something like knight to f6. It's an aggressive move, it's a safe move, it's a dual purpose move, because again it guards these two squares, and it attacks this pawn. White's got to respond now, and he's not going to be able to respond with cheesy checkmate threats. So again, let's run through this. I want you to see this again. Pawn to e4, pawn to e5. We move the queen out, attacking those two things. Black reacts calmly. Go ahead. Guard the pawn on e5. White presses his attack, focusing down on f7. Don't worry about it. Just block white's attack. White wants to keep trying. Block white's attack. And that's all you need to do. That's how you defeat the 4-move checkmate. And because it is so easy to defeat, you should never use it. Don't use it. It's a trick play that if your opponent knows how to defend against it, that trick play will backfire on you. I once saw a kid come out of a tournament game. A kid, an elementary school kid, who was a pretty strong chess player saying, I don't know what happened. I tried the 4-move checkmate on this guy, and I wound up losing the game. And I said to him, that's why you lost the game, is because you tried a trick play and your opponent didn't fall for it. The best thing to do is always make the best moves you can in whatever position that you're in. And that's the road to victory, kids. So, 4-move checkmate. Stay away from it, but be ready for it if somebody comes and attacks you with it.